This is a critical time in human history. Clearly, we are destroying the natural environment. We're warming up the globe. Our species is not going to be around very long if we can't get our consumption habits under control.
A growing number of people are looking for new ways to live more eco-friendly lives, and many are finding ecovillages as a solution to our environmental problems. An ecovillage at Ithaca was formed 20 years ago, and it has now become a leading model for sustainable living.
There are ecovillages all over the world. There are ecovillages on every continent, and each one of them is very unique. So they range from just a handful of people to some ecovillages that are 2,000 people. Our homes tend to be smaller than usual. They tend to have very large windows on the south side. That lets in the sun. The sun helps to heat the house, and it provides probably about 30% of the heat for the house. There are increasingly incentives to use renewable energy. In our first neighborhood, we just put in a 50 kilowatt solar system. It's solar electric, which is enough to provide 60% of the electricity for all 30 homes in our neighborhood.
There's kind of two aspects to Ecovillage's mission, and one aspect is a combination of conservation and living in a more sustainable way as an experiment in modeling future communities to consume less resources. And then there's the other process of co-housing and intentional neighborliness.
An eco-village at Ithaca was selected by the United Nations as one of the best practices for sustainable development. This village will be a focus at an upcoming Environmental International Conference taking place in June 2012 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Three Groves Eco-Village, located in West Grove, Pennsylvania, has a similar vision of building an ecologically sustainable neighborhood. This eco-village is still forming and expects to break ground in June 2012.
You need pioneers that build good examples and other people can come out and kick the tires.
I kept feeling like something was missing in my life, and it started not so much as environmental sustainability, but as social sustainability, and those two are coupled. With the social sustainability, you can share your resources, you can come together to accomplish so much more, because by sharing resources with my neighbor, I have to consume less.
Our remaining challenge really is we need to sell a certain number of the homes in order to break ground. Right now there are 9 families that are committed to living there. As I said, the development will ultimately be 37 families. We need to get to at least 13 families before we break ground on the first phase of the project.
Building these communities and learning to live in them is not easy. An eco-village at Ithaca works closely with the local town government to develop and maintain the village, and that has served as a great example for the other villages.
I think on the town side of the argument was they were afraid that some of our experiments would go off and get too wild and then we'd be stuck up here with no water or electricity or something like that. So there are certain things that we have to codes that we have to conform to.
There are always challenges with any kind of big project. In terms of regulations, it's often hard to get the right zoning for this kind of project. We actually wrote our own zoning code, and it allows us to set aside some land as agricultural, some land as natural areas.
In terms of our self-governance, that we come up with our own policies on how to deal with things that invariably come up, such as how the commons house gets used, and people try to work out something that everybody can live with, and that's the consensus process.
Diane has been pretty much opposed to the idea of another 20,000.
On many levels, it's a huge undertaking. People still need to earn a living, they have families, children to raise, and also a commitment to the development of Eco-Village. It's all about striking a balance, and each person has to find their balancing point.